Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah. So Ringkamp LLC is my company. It's a real unique name, I know. I've had conversations with Ian about that, and maybe it'll change someday. But for now, that's what it is. So back in November of last year, I started my company as a part-time job. And then in March, it became a full-time job for reasons out of my control. Which, if you want the long story, please talk to me afterwards and I'll gladly give it to you. And then I spent a couple months floundering around like a fish out of water from March to April to May or so. And then over the summer, things have really started to kind of coalesce into what I would say my mission and my vision and what I really want to do with myself here. So that's my name. Does this thing work? So my mission really is to help organizations optimize their systems and processes. And that could be technology, it could be physical processes, and both of those kind of combined. I do that through three things. Help businesses improve those systems, processes, and then I like to teach them how to use them, because we all know if you don't know how to use it, it sits like a paperweight. And then free businesses up to do what is really important to them. And that kind of is visible in kind of my three main service areas. So I have a lot of experience with system implementation through my previous jobs. And those systems span financial systems like QuickBooks, and these are just examples. Communication systems, human resource information systems, learning management systems, website systems, web design, point of sale systems, all those pieces. And I really love working to make those better for the organizations I work with, so they can actually, enjoy working with their technology and not be frustrated by it. The second part of that that I do is this piece I call a technology health check, or an audit, or a needs analysis, or a gap. There's lots of words for what I like to do. And I like to go into a business who is struggling and look almost like a 360-degree look at all of their systems and processes, and see what we can do to make things better. And that can include looking at disaster recovery, it can include risk management, security. Are there pieces missing in your technology stack? So I love looking into that. And then the last section is training and development. This comes from my roots as a teacher. So I was a music teacher for a long time back in the day. And then I moved into kind of technology, as they're not really related, but they are, I guess. And I love then showing people how to get the most out of what they already have in place, or the new things that I put in place, whether it's a new email system and they need to understand how to use it correctly to get the maximum value, or a new physical process from getting to point A to point B, so they're not confused in the middle and are successful with the new processes. So my ideal customer, this is our small and medium-sized businesses. And I say medium-sized, to me, I know people have various terms for that, but anything from about 0 to 50 to 75 employees is what I have been working with so far and targeting. Usually I find organizations with bigger headcounts than that have maybe full-time people, or can hire somebody who's more expensive than me to do some of these things. And then I'm looking at my challenges. So as I said, I really kind of floundered, and over the summer things have started blossoming a little bit. So I have two challenges, and these are my skills that I don't really have. So where and how should I focus my marketing efforts? There's lots of things I can join, like chambers of commerce and this and other things, but are they of value? Because I'm speaking to businesses, right? So a B2B business, I don't think billboards are the way to go, but I've not had anybody tell me what is the way to go. So looking at that. And then the second one is, how can I package what I do into offers that create reoccurring revenue? And I'm not talking about like product sales. Like, I'm not creating courses. I'm not selling like physical or digital products, but how can I build relationships with companies into, let's say, a monthly retainer fee, or a long-term contract? Because a lot of what I do is project-based right now, and I'd love to do projects and continue building relationships rather than do projects and say, see you later, and not see them ever again. So thank you.
Welcome.
Hi.
What are you doing now for marketing?
Not much.
Do you have a website?
Yes. I have a business card too.
That's a great start. That's a great start.
And a Facebook profile. But that's about it. Outside of, so most of it's referrals and word of mouth right now.
Okay.
That's why I asked it.
Is there a specific industry or like business type that you prefer to work with or have the most experience working with?
Have the most experience just via my job working with educational entities and nonprofits. That being said, I'm cross industry right now. I have some law firm clients. I have some tractor supply clients. I have some school clients. I have some nonprofit clients. So it's.
And I ask that because some of the consultant type people I work with, they find a lot of success going niche out rather than out to niche. So you find that passion area you can become an expert in and really use that as your beachhead to attack the market and then expand out as relationships build. And that also allows you to kind of center your marketing material more on that specific group. So you're not, creating really kind of all-encompassing but boring marketing material. You're really honing in on that. That'd probably be my first recommendation, is figuring out where your passion niche is and using that as your beachhead.
Okay.
I'm going to relay it.
As far as your locality, so are you only in certain areas? Are you branching out to different counties, states? With how you're able to, are you considering outsourcing further into your area?
I'm open to whatever works,
Okay.
I guess, at this point. Right now, most of my clients are local between Sealands Grove and Wellsboro in a vertical line, actually. It's kind of
Okay.
interesting. But I do have one client in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. And then the second part to that, so my dad's also in consulting. He goes out of state. And that does have an issue because the same thing. It's a project base by base. Depending on where your area is, if you're able to branch out to other companies, maybe their companies will have other people in the area as well, but possibly growing a little bit more. Oh.
Scott, you talked a lot in general terms about things that you can work on in your skill set. Can you tell us about like maybe a meaningful project that had great results? And I think it'll help us get down to ground level of what you're doing.
Okay. So I work with, and this is my second client that I got when I was part-time. So it's my biggest completed project to date. I work with a ministry in Africa. They're based in York, Pennsylvania, but they work in Africa to train pastors. And they recently started a partnership with a university in Sierra Leone to offer a bachelor's degree for the work they're doing. But they're missing two big pieces to that. They didn't have any way of tracking their student data information, and they didn't have any way of delivering content to pastors in the bush in Africa, low bandwidth. So I've been working with them since January. And I developed a student tracking system specifically for them on the ground, smartphone based. And we're building out the content management system using just Microsoft SharePoint because it's low bandwidth, no logins required and stuff like that for access for people on the ground in Africa. Cool. That's kind of a very specific
but that helps.
project.
I got it.
And I like,
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, can I like it, because I get the question a lot, like, you do technology, but it's not, what I really enjoy doing is not like running network cables and backing up computers and cybersecurity and stuff like that. What I really enjoy doing is big holistic system work with organizations.
So something I would consider doing as a new business is to actually sit down and make a list of potential clients. I don't know if that's something you've done yet. Typically what you want to do is you want to break them into 3 different categories. You want to have like your whales and like your medium people and then like the people you really don't care about. And you know, ironically, a lot of new businesses, they make a mistake of going after the whales first. The challenge with that is you don't know what they're going to ask you. And you don't know the answer. So a lot of times you'll leave those meetings like, oh, I should have said this, or this was the right answer, you know, or, you know. So typically when you make that list of those 3 different clients, I actually suggest then you go after the very small people first. Maybe do like a needs analysis for them, like a free needs analysis. I find video works really well. Like, here's a 3-minute video. I did this needs analysis for you. Yeah, and then what you do is you want to have those conversations with those people, and they're going to ask you questions that you don't know the answers to. Okay, but you're gonna quickly get those same questions as you move up the food chain. So consider making a list, and then it becomes very easy. I have 100 people on my list. I'm gonna call 5 people today or do 5 needs analysis this week and move on from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, so I saw that on your website you do like kind of like a fractional chief technology officer kind of thing. And so one recommendation, because you're already working in the nonprofit sphere, the United Way has been doing that specifically for nonprofits on a marketing kind of basis. So I know that it's an idea that has worked, that they are looking at what are the other resources that they can tap into. So one way to expand would be contact the United Way, and I can connect you with Adrian, because that's something else. Like a lot of nonprofits are so small and don't have the funding to have someone look holistically at their technology. And they're often under-resourced and being as secure as they need to be. So
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. So since you already have experience, this is one way to like continue in that vein and potentially work your way into having some consistent work that can offset some of your costs.
I would love that. Thanks.
Yeah. Where are we going with this?
Hi.
Hi.
I think it's really interesting that you have an active, database of clients existing. And that's really valuable insight into what you're offering. So there's a simple way to, I think it's simple, a simple way to be able to unpack what you're offering, and that's looking at those who are obviously, those who have a budget, and those who have the greatest depth of need. And I think that's just one way to begin unpacking, because you'll find that not all your clients have the same level of need for what you're offering. But being able to tease out of all these people, which of these had the greatest level of need and how responsive were they to the solution I was offering, will probably give you insight into other areas or even sectors where you'd be able to offer real solutions. I mean, the same solutions you're offering.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. She sparks. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I could go on forever, but you have a set of products and services kind of in your mind, like these are the products, these are the 10 products and services. So something to consider is what are the most profitable products and services, which ones take up the most amount of time, which ones are the most profitable. And typically when you're first starting off, you want to go after the most profitable first. So just, try to be very concise. Not only know who your potential customers are, but know exactly what it is you have to offer them, and to maybe try to line those up with those potential customers as well.
Hi, Scott. Stephanie DeSonia here. I apologize if someone else answered this. I didn't hear it, but I know you talked about trying to get some recurring revenue rather than just project-based work. And one approach that I've seen work for a lot of people that you might want to consider is project-based work is a really great way to get in the door, and it gives you a really good opportunity to peek under the hood. So they bring you in for a simple project of like, we need this, we need this system built, or we need this dashboard built. And as you're doing that, what can you identify as items that they would need ongoing support for? Like, hey, you've got this tech stack built up. I provide a monthly like tech automation management service where I go in and make sure all your connections are working. And so that way you don't have to worry about it if something's gonna break or when it's gonna break or how it's gonna break. I can monitor that for you and go in and do that. So I don't know if this is something you've tried, but using the project work to identify areas where they would want an ongoing retainer and ongoing support because it's something that they probably need but haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to or don't have the skill set to really give that high level of service and management to. Is that something you've considered at all?
It's something I realize exists, but I haven't actually asked anybody about it yet.
Okay.
Or packaging it and wording it correctly.
Yeah.
No, and I think to Stephanie's point, how do you go in for the project and technology by its nature is something that's not static. We need to keep addressing it. So how do you almost schedule that follow-up and that next engagement? And maybe it's not like, hey, do you want to sign me on for a monthly retainer? Maybe it's, let's find a time to reconnect in a quarter or halfway through the year so that you're building that pipeline. And then, of course, having something in place now where you're thinking early on about how do I remarket to these folks down the road, whether they sign on beyond that project or not. Do you put them on some kind of a quarterly mailing where you're asking them pointed questions about services that you offer that are going to be relevant and finding ways to stay in touch? And the only other comment that I really had was when you sort of had that sort of 3-tier stack of all the things that you do, it can feel like all the everything for everybody. And so I think when people talk about where do you start to niche down and where do you start to target and hone in to find that initial client base, that's a place where sometimes people, if they look at all that, they don't actually know where to begin. So having those really tangible, like, here's your needs analysis that we offer at this rate that assesses these things that affect an industry. Sometimes I think it's just simplifying the communication. And it's hard when you start out because you don't know what's going to land, right? So you kind of want to be like, oh, I can do all these different things. I don't know who wants what. But I think that if you can start to even package them up or bundle them or simplify that, it just makes it easier for someone to understand how you actually can support their business.
And that's kind of where I'm at, at that point where I'm trying to figure all those things out. I got some clients that doesn't work, but a lot of those clients were just the projects were oh, okay, we can do that, rather than me being proactive and being like, here's what my specific offer.
Well, and maybe the opposite way of doing some writing up some case studies, keeping the information, personal information redacted, but having some case studies that you can add to your website and to your marketing to talk about how you served someone else. And that way a potential partner can see themselves in that solution that you offered. That might be another way to approach it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and Scott, Amber, you took mine.
Sorry, great minds.
Oh, I know. That's what it is. We'll talk after. So I was thinking about, as Amber was explaining, it's this model of, am I a buffet? Am I a restaurant? Am I a cafe? Am I a bakery? Or am I a donut shop? Right? And it's kind of that whole spectrum of that really broad. And I've known you for years, so I also know you have a real passion for learning. I just kind of wondered is that surfacing as something that you could say, I'm learning focused, or are you tech focused, or are you business? Ben can probably explain this better than me. Am I solidifying my business focused? I don't know what that just meant. You know what I mean? Is there something along this pathway from buffet to donut shop that you're kind of gravitating toward based on some of your early clients and your history?
I don't know. I honestly,
Making a quiet air conditioning system would be great.
Well, going back to the very, very first comment, just about as far as getting focused on what I'm passionate about, I really enjoy working. And I know that not as much money there, but with nonprofit organizations, and whether or not that's learning focused. A lot of times it is because I'm good at that. But I think really working with nonprofits is where I get really excited because they care a lot more about what they're doing than a law firm cares about what they're doing with. Anyway, it just.
There's a whole we could talk about nonprofit work because we're in that business as well. So we could talk more, but find the nonprofits that have, is it Soma? Soma, she explained that, do they have the money? Right, so no doubt that there's lots of nonprofits around that have extreme passions and unfortunately limited budgets. So, we can talk more about that offline.
Yep.
Scott, tell us a little bit more about your passion around leaving people with the technology and being comfortable and able to use it.
I love it when, so when I get finished working with a client, I don't want them to just be happy. I like them to be able to go into work and actually enjoy what they're doing. Because I think a lot of people go into work and they have to sit down in front of QuickBooks or whatever, and they just like banging a head against a wall and hate it. And I think to me, like a sign of success is if they are excited to actually use what I put in place and it gets used, rather than just it's all right, it's implemented, but we're going to ignore that product because we're being forced to use it by somebody. So
I think that's a differentiator for you. And I know I'm cheating a little bit because of our previous conversations, but you have in the past talked about people having products, technology, and systems that was never used or was a burden to them. And in my opinion, that's a differentiator or a secret sauce for you. But you know that already.
Anyone else?
Josh, back in.
I can talk for hours about this type of stuff, so I try to sit quietly and then touch base afterwards so we could actually schedule a conversation. But when we're talking about, hearing you talk and having nothing but what you've said today, so no background, nothing else about you, it sounds like you are passionate about the puzzle, the problem solving, and leaving a high quality product for the people when you exit the door.
That's a great way of putting it.
Okay, so tied to that, when you talk about looking at recurring revenue, there's a concern sometimes that when you have recurring service revenue, you become an employee. So if there's a way that you can build your leave away with a service or a continuancy binder for a year. So that gets into Amber's point about being able to do those audits to find more projects for them, but it's still tied to project specific. So you aren't getting the phone call that says, we have a doohickey that's not working with a thingamajig today. Can you come solve it? You're like, I don't want to do that like small little tit-tat, but tying it into the project base. So you have an exit if you want to, they have an exit if they want to, but it leads to that pipeline. It leads to some of that recurring follow-on that might not necessarily be tied to a daily phone call.
That's exactly what I love doing.
It's a service plan on a car.
That's great. But my highest paying client right now, that's what I do for them. And I don't even know how it happened. So I started with one project, and then I was like, there's this. As I was doing that project, I discovered another project. I was like, we could do this, and so they were like, yeah, go do that one. Now I'm on to another one. And I have 3 more lined up. That's all project based, so it's not a $500 flat fee or something a month. It's like it's flexible based on the projects. But I have projects that I really enjoy doing for them for the next 6 months. Just like that though, and they're big things. It's not like our printer's not working. Can you come in and fix it type thing.
Think about it as like it's a service plan on a car you buy. So like you're selling the car, okay? You have a service plan on the back. They don't really care about my $7.99 a month that I pay them for the service plan. They want to change my tires. They want to replace my carburetor. That's the similar plan. It sounds like that you would prefer. So that that's that tickler. So you're the first call, but you get the next project. Just thoughts.
Great.
So it sounds like your educator background, that connection to people and leaving them with this sense of being able to optimize their work is really a special piece about what the technology aspect that you're bringing to the table. So if you combine that operations understanding and maximizing and optimizing people's ability to enjoy what they do and utilize their systems management, and that, I mean, I think there's something really key here, whether it's a company, a nonprofit, or what have you. And I think there's just sort of playing on what's been said here recently. I think what I see, again, coming in from the outside, not having heard anything about, you have a potential ability to excite people in what they do, to come back every day to utilize something that's very underutilized in their organization and their company. For the most part, I would gander to say that most systems are severely underutilized in terms of their capabilities. I know that from my own organization, and it creates confusion or just uncertainty on how to collaborate well, how to utilize and maximize the potential of an operation. And if you can sort of really focus on that, I mean, that's what I'm hearing and gathering from everybody, because you have that passion to not only dig in, figure it out, problem solve, and maximize systems, but also then help people want to use it and then come back to you for more. Like, there's something there that I think will be natural to you if you really sort of think about it that way. And starting with that needs assessment that we were talking about, it's trying to understand what's not being maximized and then bringing people together. And you may find a partner that helps you, or an organization that helps work with you side by side to bring that aspect. Like, if you're really like internal focused, there may be somebody else who actually is more of the collaborator or person who brings people together, that optimizes your own abilities to take that to the next level. So just a couple of thoughts there. I think there's some real potential here. Good conversation.
Thanks.
Good job. Hey, Scott. I can't believe I actually caught it. I remember meeting you last month. I think it was last month or 2 months ago. But and I remember talking with you and just thinking, wow, I really appreciate how process-oriented you are, and how you're very humble, and you were sort of, not sure, what you said you didn't know what you're just finding your path. And then you had a meeting. And the meeting was with this church that had the mission and all of this, and I was like, "That's a hell of a meeting, and a hell of a project that you had coming up." So what I'm thinking is, you've already done some really interesting projects, and you've got some really interesting stories about what you've done, and I just think maybe take some time, record some of this, so that it's not just in your head, because that'll help you then tell your story. And you said something about your developing your mission and vision too. And I think kind of not auditing, but recording what you've already done to see, it sounds like you're doing a lot of the things that you would like to continue doing. So write them down, and that I think that will help you with that process.
Great.
Time for one more?
You can see the confidence we both have in our throwing and catching abilities. And so what I was thinking, are there any other, how did you find the clients that you're working with now?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth from previous?
Some were through my previous job. A lot were through friends.
Okay.
I just recently got my first one that was not a friends and family discount.
And how did they come to you?
A word of mouth.
Okay.
They reached out. I had somebody I'd done a job for refer me to them, and they called me, and I was like, let's chat.
Okay. And that's because you were talking about marketing kind of way back when, and I think in a business like this, it's really, you need to have a solid presence online, but a lot of it is the relationship building. And so maybe it's the moment you go back through your LinkedIn and set up some 15-minute calls with people that you have good working relationships with to let them know what you're doing. Sometimes it is more the word of mouth and I did this for this organization, and they refer on to somebody else. So that would be one other, from a marketing perspective, thing to think about.
Okay, great.
Let's give a big round of applause for Scott.